Good morning, everyone. Hi, if you want to take some seats, we're going to get started. We're already a little bit late. So welcome. This is our last PFA meeting. Very sad, but at least we're here in person. It's great to see everyone. So today's meeting is about the transition from high school into college. And we have two speakers, Greg Sloan. He is the teen talk counselor here at the high school. And then we have Jerry Gertzen. He is an attorney at the Lampert, Chewy, and Rucci right here in town. But before we have our guest speakers, we're going to have Meg Mayhos and Allie Dunlop come up, our very hard-working co-chairs for the post-prom party. So thank you again for coming, and enjoy the presentation.
Thanks, ladies. For those of us who don't know us yet, you probably have seen our names, but I'm Meg Mayhos. This is Allie Dunlap. We're co-chairing the post-prom party, which is the party after the prom. It hasn't happened in 2 years, so we feel like a lot of people might not really know what it is. It happens after the prom at Waveney Park in an effort to keep the kids safe that night, so they're not drinking, driving around, going to parties. The students arrive at Waveney at 11:59 p.m. They arrive between 11:59 and 12:30, and they stay until 4 in the morning. We're going to entertain them with food, games, music, shows, and a ton of prizes that they can win. The event is put together completely by parent volunteers and funded completely by donations. We still need both of those things. Our volunteer coordinators are in the back of the room, Lisa Braun and Vivian Deligtish. If anyone, anyone is willing to volunteer the night of, it means staying the whole night. If you're willing to do that, you'll get a glimpse at what goes on. And please speak to Lisa and Viv. And we are still looking for monetary donations. We have participation by 56% of the senior class, which we were hoping for closer to 100. So if anyone in this room hasn't donated yet, please go to the PFA website. There's a link there.
And we'll probably be getting emails about that. It's been in the weeklies and the ramograms, but we're going to start targeting seniors, so just be on the lookout for that too. Okay, so if you don't know, we'll just kind of give you a little bit of the lay of the land of the night so that you can sort of communicate to your kids because they may not know either. Most of the kids I would think would go to the actual prom, but you can also come to this event if you do not go to the prom. So in theory, they would go to the prom in their dresses and whatever they want to wear. They would come home probably around 11 and change into casual clothes. Then they would come to Waveney between 11:59 and 12:30. So the rules for the night, every single senior is invited to the event. They may attend.
And their dates.
Yes, with or without a date, and regardless of whether or not you went to the prom. You have to arrive and check in between 11:59 p.m. and 12:30 a.m. The students will be breathalyzed before entering the event. No alcohol, no substances allowed or tolerated. If anyone does not pass the breathalyzer, someone from the high school will call the parent and the child will have to be picked up. They should wear comfortable clothing. They should not bring any sort of a bag. If anything is brought, they will be collected at the door. You may only check out once. So once you leave the event, you may not come back. The kids will, like as Meg mentioned, go to entertainers and play games. They will earn or win tickets. And then there's going to be like a big prize room. And then they can kind of put tickets into different bowls to potentially win, up to, I think there may be like close to 100 different prizes. The seniors do have to be, only the seniors can win the tickets, only seniors can win the prizes, and they must be present to win. And when they leave, the seniors will also receive a party favor. Any senior who is not 18, and when they drive home, if they need a driving pass, we will give that to them. So I think, are there any questions? Yes. They are allowed to attend, yes, sorry, we should say that.
And if they're a student at another school, they're allowed to come as well. They just can't win the prizes.
So, but they will be breathalyzed, and they will have to provide their name and cell phone
Contact
numbers upon, and I guess probably a parent contact or an emergency contact upon check-in. So the check-in process is a little bit, I don't want to say chaotic, but like, they have to, when they come to Waveney, there'll be breathalyzer stations, and there's going to be a check-in station. They're going to have to check in with like a series of parents who are on computers, and we log kind of everything, like what time they get there, what time, if the person wins a prize, what time they check out, so we'll know where they are at all times.
Our goal is not to lose a kid over the course of the evening.
Yes. And yeah, any other questions?
So taking off our post-prom hats, we want to ask everyone in this room to share this information as well. This is not run through the school or the PFA, but the Roger Sherman Inn has reached out to us, and they invite every senior and their families and their dates on May 13th from 5 to 6:30 p.m. For pictures. This is a tradition that's been going on for 8 or 10 years. So everyone is invited, and please pass the word. We don't want... It's not going to be advertised through the school because it's not a school event, but we want everyone to realize that they're included in this. It's not select. It's for everyone.
And yeah, the prom is May 13th, so 2 weeks from Friday. The tickets, I think, are going to go on sale May 2nd through the high school.
May 2nd, according to...
Because I think the junior prom is this Friday. So any other questions? Kristen?
I just want to say thank you guys so much, because there's a lot of time and energy that goes into this.
Oh,
and
she's so
we're working
sweet.
really, really hard. So, thank you. I was not paid to say that.
Hello, everybody. So I just met Jerry, and we're kind of going to go back and forth. Thank you to Stefania and the rest of the PFA for inviting me. Can you hear me okay? Is it okay? So I'll introduce myself and what I do here. I've been at New Canaan High School for 6 months. It's been a really good 6 months. I'm enjoying it. I work as the Teen Talk counselor for an organization called Kids in Crisis. And Teen Talk counselors, we're master's level clinicians. We're working with students throughout Fairfield County. It's funny, I've met over 50 students, including seniors, and I've met less than 10 parents, so this is like total flip for me. And I can tell the topic of high school transition to college, that all of you are first time in that, because the audience seems very, very youthful, and I can tell this is your first experience. But I do work closely with Mr. Rothman, the rest of the administrators, the clinical staff certainly, and we do a lot in terms of mental health. Mental health has been a big issue recently, and I was asked to present on some thoughts that I had transitioning high school students to college. Just met Jerry, who has a senior and a freshman in college, so he's been through the process. So I went to college a few years ago, and I have also one in college and one who graduated college. So I figured this could be, I'd go through my slides. If you have any questions or thoughts, just a great opportunity to talk and share with one another. I never like to kind of lecture. These are just, I did a little bit of preparation, a little bit of research, just some things I came up with, some thoughts that were helpful to me, but I certainly wanted to be interactive. And if you have any questions at any time, please, jump in. Same for you.
Thanks for the youthful comment, first of all. Senior, it feels good. Again, I'm an attorney. I practice for now 32 years in Manhattan, where my main office is. I've also run the Trust and Estates practice at Lampert, Toohey, and Rucci here in New Canaan for the last 12 or so years. Last year, it was the first time I did this. It was remote. It feels good to be here, finally. We were all doing this, by Zoom, in our pajamas, so it feels good to get out and see everybody. Again, I think I have some experience, too, with my senior now with us, Julia. I think some of you may know her, and I have a freshman, Ava, who just started at Villanova. So been through this a few times now, cycling through with the counselors and trying to get our children prepared for a difficult transition sometimes for them. I'm here to talk really about the documents that you're going to need if you want to continue to help your children with things like medical care, business-related things if they have assets, things of this nature. So again, I thought too that I would just, as I go through this, open it up to questions and we can kind of just make this interactive. I was almost thinking of thinking that you're one of my clients here and that we just have an exchange of questions and answers. If you think you need to chime in, feel free. Okay, but I think we're going to start with Greg. And again, he and I just met, but we both agree that if there's anything that he thinks he would like to comment on that I'm talking about, that's fine, vice versa. So I kind of see this as an open forum. I find that to be useful when I'm meeting with my clients, and hopefully it'd be the same here. But thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. I worked in the New Rochelle school system over in Westchester County for 27 years, plus 5 years in New York City. So coming to New Canaan, I'd never really been here, and then I've been very much welcomed by the school and the community, and it feels really nice. So thank you all. So we're going to talk about challenges that I see with transitioning to college. You know, and to me, it always starts with how much is too much, and like obviously we all have the ability to text very often, and some of you do. Some of you text your students multiple times throughout the day while they're in school, and I think it's trying to find that fine line between independence but not pulling back too far and feeling what's right. And that being said, to me, every situation is different depending on the circumstances. I do feel there's a need for ongoing communication. With me, it looks like once a month. I'm sorry, no, that would be wrong. Once a week on Sundays when my student was out in Ohio, and that just became. That being said, if there's ever open communication on his end, I always respond. But if I haven't heard and I just wanted to check in, that was just that was my go-to, because my feeling was just to give it the space, give it room to breathe, while being fully supportive if there's any needs. Because it's I know how many of you this is the first time you're sending someone off to college. Yeah, I knew it was the majority, and it's a couple of slides later, I want to talk about the impact that it has on you. I put it right there. You don't want to bother them. You don't want to be too much in their business, but you want to make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to do. They're going to their classes. They're not taking advantage of this newfound freedom too much. And also to look for changes, in the student. You've known your child for 18 years, and no one knows them like you do. But if there's significant changes, things like weight gain, weight loss, irritability, they're saying they're not sleeping, well, over-exercising, excessive worry, I think these are all signs that it's not, these are real issues. We've all lived through, your students in particular have lived through high school differently than most other generations. So I think going to college, we're starting to hear from the colleges what that looks like. We know what it looks like in high school. We know that ninth graders come in with, they missed middle school, so some of the behaviors in ninth grade have been, quote unquote, more middle school-like. And I think some of the newfound freedom of going to college exists too, but I'm so glad that your students have been able to have a normal senior year, to hear about prom, to hear that, because I know in the past it hasn't been, both in the school I worked in previously and here. The numbers in terms of mental health and what we're seeing during post-pandemic and just in general are really staggering. The numbers that I looked up come from, Center for, CBC, all those type of organizations. It used to be like 18% of high school seniors, I can't remember, it could be like 10 to 15 years ago, said they had experiences with, some kind of mental health challenges, depression, anxiety. Now it's up to like 44%. So it's really, really significant. Why? Why is there, the students I meet here, the most common themes are depression and anxiety, clearly. And I know, we can look to things like the pandemic. Things had been on the rise anyway, but I think that just exacerbated things. I always find, one of my methods with students, with my own kids, is just to be open and honest, to, talk about, really try to relate to them and explain circumstances that you've been with. I think it goes a long way with students. You're still, it'll be on one of the slides later, but you're still the voice, despite their actions, that they want to hear most and that they trust the most. I know it feels like sometimes their friends' opinions and their friends are more important, but when you're struggling, there's nothing, the relationship they have with you is going to be critical. I also think it's important to manage expectations because, when you go to college, I've been talking to a few seniors who were not thrilled with their results. Hopefully every student is going to end up somewhere that they want to be. I know some students I think it's got to be about a week more before they start getting their final decision. But at this point, end of April, we have some students who still do not know where they're going. It's very, very anxiety producing. You almost, with a few of them, you almost don't want to ask them right away. You've probably experienced, well, what's it going to be? It's because they feel like everywhere they go, every family event, people ask them that same question: where are you going? Where are you going? And it becomes really annoying to some of them because they feel like, that's the expectation. These are the 4 best years of my life. Everyone keeps putting so much pressure on me, when the reality is that, more realistic approach is that there are ups and downs. It's natural to feel, uncomfortable, especially freshman year. This may be, maybe you have a student who doesn't worry about these things and just kind of sailed through high school and will keep sailing. There are those people. On the other hand, we know that the statistics are saying that there's students really struggling and wondering if it's the right fit. Will it be right for them? Some things New Canaan High School students have said, things like, they felt pretty challenged here during their years, so they feel like the message has been, whether it's from faculty, from whoever, that, if they're okay academically, don't worry about it. But that sometimes can be a negative because there's a chance they might need a little bit extra help. And colleges, depending on the size, my oldest both my children are at somewhat of a smaller school. It's really impressive when you're writing those tuition checks, but you realize that they can get the help that they need. And I know I went to a larger school, and I know that in a larger campus, you can get that help also. But the professors, yeah, sure.
Is the deck available for sharing?
Yeah, as soon as I figure out how to do that, I'm happy to do that. Maybe Stefania, I'll email it back to you when I'm done, and you can distribute it on the website.
Yeah, some great bullet points up there. I want to know if
Sure.
I can take copious notes.
Oh, yeah.
But I do have a question. On
Yeah.
the negative bullet. What are some of the triggers of the anxiety and depression? Is it loneliness? Is it the challenge of what they are faced with? Maybe a bit more than what they thought?
I do think, it's right. Why the increase so much? Why, you hit on something that comes to mind. Certainly, a feeling of isolation while they were isolated, while they were quarantining, while they were taken away from really everything that's important to them. I mean, you have students that didn't get to see their friends, that didn't get to join clubs, we were shut down for more or less a year. And I think, as you're developing, I just think it kind of has, exacerbated it. Other factors, I think there's so much pressures, obviously to me, social media stands out. These kids' lives are in stories constantly. They read each other's story. I don't even know what that looks like, and I don't want to, but they post everywhere, and, it's a lot of pressure for those people who, they get I think it's like a false sense. I think students, communicate and they communicate only through text, only through things. And I don't think, in my opinion, and you can tell me if you're wrong, but I don't get a sense like relationships are built on anything substantial. Not obviously not all. Some of these people have been friends lifelong, but I think there's like a falseness that they feel like they have tons of friends. I get tons of likes on my stuff, but is it real? That's kind of my sense. It's just, it's a deep question, but I think there's a lot of pressures that come with today, different than generations before. The pressure to fit in, not not so much, it used to be like you fit in with what you look like, what you wear. I still think that exists, but to me, the pressures that students talk about are, what their stories and what they post and what their, what TikTok and all this stuff. I don't really know. It's a little overwhelming. I can't even keep up with it. I think there's pressures that once you leave the school exists because their world is kind of online in a lot of ways. So it's a great question. It takes, I notice it with my own kids. I think there's, an increase, and how I would deal with it is just really to talk to them and just like continue to be there for them, especially, when they're away, if they're willing. But I do think it's okay, back to this question, I do think it's okay for kids to get extra help in college. I think that's how you form relationships with your professors. That's what they're there for. They have office hours. It's not a negative. There are plenty of opportunities to make, friends and meet new people. The freshman experience on the opposite end can feel lonely and isolating. The roommate is key, when you get, is it going to be a match? I know they have, nowadays they'll get their roommate assignment well in advance, and your students have Instagram pages that they join on, and they've met already people. But again, who's going to be there when it's real? Is it going to be, like I fit in with these people right away, or is it going to feel a little isolating?
If I may, just quickly.
Sure.
Like Ava, my freshman, was telling me that, she was an ED student at Nova, and they gave them the opportunity to, I guess, try to pick a roommate. And I think the consensus was for her friends that were entering into their freshman year that trying to get to know somebody well enough to know whether or not you're going to be able to, live with them and be happy. Mm-hmm. Just using social media is difficult. And she was telling me that a lot of those types of relationships that were formed during that process of picking a roommate failed, just didn't work. And she almost felt that it's just better just to roll the dice, let them assign the roommate, and do it that way. That, again, I think relying on social media to try to get to know somebody, in a true sense is difficult. A lot of the communications, and I'm not big, I'm on Instagram a little bit, but I'm not on Snapchat or whatever they use, superficial. And it's kind of like these hip little quips about, how to communicate, really hard to get to know somebody. So I don't think I would rely on those sorts of methods of communication to, be certain that the person that they're picking as a roommate is going to work. I mean, that was just her thought on it, and I just felt,
and all the students will most likely, depending on the school, receive like some type of questionnaire.
Yeah.
Do you like noisy? Do you okay with quiet? Are you neat? Are you
Right.
messy? What type of music? And they answer these questions. So hopefully the computers try to generate a positive response, but it's again a computer. It's
right.
not.
She's recommending to my daughter who's entering school now, just don't even bother with the social media. Just wing it,
Yeah.
Just let them randomly assign somebody. You're going to be just this, The questionnaires are there, though.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
And recognizing that the transfer rate, there are close to 39% of students have transferred out after freshman year, which seems high. But I think you want to utilize the resources that are available. You move into a freshman dorm, there's a resident advisor, there's a resident director. If there are issues with roommates, something that out of left field, I think it's just to tap into these resources that are there. That's really what they're there for. And I think there's pressures, back to your question, of just like you want everything to kind of be perfect. My parents, this has been the plan since I was in kindergarten. My parents have talked about college, and we want everything. And I think that, I experienced that a little bit with my oldest son, that it's supposed to be perfect. But, the message from me is that it's okay if it's not. If there's issues, let's try to deal with it. Another expectation, if so-and-so can finish in 4 years, so can you. Well, the average actually is that some students do take a little bit longer nationally. I'm sure the majority of us in the room probably finished in 4 years. But it's okay if they need a little bit of extra time, unless you have to pay like child support or something. That's not a good thing. It's just prolongs it, but I don't know. making friends and peer relations, meeting people where they're at. I think it's still important to be mindful that we've all come out of this pandemic differently, and some schools were even remote longer or shorter, and that everyone, depending on the school your child is going to, the diversity factor is probably a little bit more than what they're used to here. My background, like I said, was over in New Rochelle, New York, and I tell my friends who worked there, I worked there 27 years, I think the only thing New Rochelle and New Canaan have in common is the word new, like, other than that, it's, but that being said, I find students today very, very open to new experiences, to meeting new people. I'm always kind of fascinated. That's probably, for me, one of the benefits of social media, because they have relationships with people who they meet through these, and sometimes it's really, really positive. So I do think, being aware, being open to new people's experiences, taking risks, these are all good things, joining clubs. That being said, to try new things, and not, you don't have to stick with something if it's not the right fit. Certain things, could be changed. You might, usually what happens from my experiences, you're assigned a roommate or in a suite, you connect with some of them, you don't connect with all of them, but then, sophomore year, those students who do connect start making arrangements to live together and so on. Those are when things click in a positive way. Whoops. So I started to say this, your words to them are still, I don't care if they're 18 already, they just, what I get a sense from students is that how important, everything you've done for them really is. And it's nice when students are 18 and still talking about, how difficult it's going to be for them to leave. In some ways, some are just can't wait and just like look forward to it immediately. Others are just, they really get caught up in the moment, It's a big step. Unpacking, I don't know if you experienced what it was like to leave, and just, we've seen it in movies, you see the tears, and other students are just like, goodbye, I'm ready. And I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. Everyone's first semester of college looks different, and, I always like to believe that everyone's dealing with things the best way they can. Students are coping with the changes the best way they know how, and everyone does their best. And it's kind of a dichotomy, if you will, that people are doing their best, but there's always room for improvement at the same time. So, an example of that would be, I know that class was hard. Maybe we can, next semester we can think of ways to communicate that earlier. And also, the message I got from college certainly was that it's okay to be challenged. That's really what colleges want. They, is the expectation to come out of there, like high school with the highest GPA possible? I guess if you're looking to get into a, law school or medical school or something like that. But, a more realistic approach is to take something unique that you've never experienced before. Open, this is what colleges really want, especially smaller liberal arts type schools. Try something, and if you get a C, it's okay because you tried something new. I don't know, I'm a big believer in that, but, it's different for every family, I suppose. Asking them if there is an issue, something's going on that they're communicating to you, and this is, from my background as a counselor, do you try to solve the issue, or you just, sometimes they just want to be listened to. They just want to talk, and they just want to be listened to. I, have been here 6 months. I've met, a good number of students, and a lot of times I just listen, and they just like talking, and I feel that can easily transfer to the child-parent relationship when they leave. So when they leave, they're more of an adult, and let's see what we got. So then there's the issue of they come back from breaks, and I don't know. I felt like I was communicating once a week, in touch. I felt like I was new and on, and then this person showed up that I didn't recognize. There was a lot of changes, and it's still your house. So like, it's not like they're independent, they're going out of their own, they do what they want when they want to, pretty much. But when they come home, it's, sometimes there's pressures associated with, like, we're all together now, we're going to do this, even though they may not want to. Discussing expectations around family commitments, sibling time, what the expectations are. I'm sure you have expectations now in terms of curfews and things of that nature, and I think it's okay to continue that, when they're in your house, your rules type of thing. To me, the scariest, all the incidents we hear about on college campuses, all the ones that make the news, always center around one thing, and it's the binge drinking, and to me, that's the underlying factor, whether it's, the drinking to the point of no return. And that's just something that I think communicating and being honest and open about with your students, hearing from them, because not everyone drinks in high school. I know a lot of students do, obviously, but sometimes it's the ones who go away, and it's that newfound freedom, and it could be a little scary if they don't know themselves and know their bodies. Like I said, to me, that issue around all these it's always the common thread, and it's the scariest one to me. And just realizing, depending on the campus, that there are people to speak to. I mean, you're paying a good amount in tuition. I find my experiences in dealing with students who have, returned and spoken with me is that they do feel comfortable, that there are resources available. It might be, the larger the school, it might be more difficult to get an appointment, but between student health centers, they're basically, in loco parenti, if you will. I mean, they're taking the place of you. They're adults. They realize that they have thousands and thousands of impressionable, upper teenagers to 21-year-olds, and it's a lot to manage. But most of the times you hear positive things, and that you feel like you're leaving your child in good hands. It's almost like you're dropping them off at camp for the summer, except it's it's a little longer. It's 9 months, but there's people around. There's people that will help. There's people that need to step in and do the right thing when there's been incidents. So I would encourage your student, if there's a distance and you're in New Canaan and they're somewhere halfway across the country, that you don't need to do everything on your own. That there are resources available. Find somebody, and there's nothing wrong with parents making calls. Also, from my experience. And just some resources, and some of my sources, some things. I'll put all this in the deck. Certainly, I'll share it with Stefania. And I really just, I don't know. I wish you luck. I think it's exciting. I'm really happy to talk to you. If I could be of any resource between now and graduation, something that you're struggling with or you have a question about, I'd be really, really happy to assist. So thank you. Okay, turn it over to you.
Okay, just I think connected to that just quickly, I think the one thing that I found that my daughter Ava was telling me that helped her reduce, the level of anxiety and stress that she was experiencing was the fact that we've done a great job here educating our kids. These programs that we have here in this high school are rigorous, and it helped her transition from the academics here to the academics in college. And she felt that she had an advantage there academically because of where we are and the resources that we have here, the programs that were offered, the classes that she took. So that part of her experience wasn't as difficult, I think, as maybe it could have been, at a different place. So if that helps reduce a little bit of the anxiety here. Well, anyway, so I'd like to talk about a few things. First, and I apologize, I will be reading from some of this because some of what I'm referring to are legal documents, and I just want to try to be precise. We're being recorded, and I just want to make sure that anyone who listens to this can be rest assured that I'm referring to documents here that are worded in a way that are tried and true. So there are times when I'll just break into just reading through. This is going to be one of them. I'm going to open up with a talk about HIPAA. Everyone knows what that is. It's the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, and that protects the privacy of medical records and information. Okay. Doctors, medical facilities, they're not allowed to release your medical information, obviously. Once your child hits 18, they are adults under Connecticut law. Every state has the age of 18 as the age of majority, except for Alabama and Nebraska, which are 19. So if your child does get sick, winds up in a hospital, can't communicate, they're not going to talk to you. These are the doctors and the medical people at the hospitals or wherever, because they're adults. And with absent your children signing certain documents that give you permission to continue to speak with medical professionals and helping them make medical decisions, they're not going to. They will not talk to you. Okay, so HIPAA, strict regulations there with respect to the doctor's abilities to release information and communicate with people that aren't authorized to communicate on the patient's behalf. There's a few documents connected to the healthcare set that we have the college students think about signing. Again, this is the second year I've done this, and I'd say most of our clients, the students that come in, sign most of these. There's a couple that they think about and table, but the first is a healthcare proxy. That's a document where they appoint an agent to act for them if they are incapacitated and can't communicate medical concerns with doctors and talk about treatment. I'm going to read a little bit from the statute here, from the statutory form, because I think it's a good way to get started. And basically, we're talking about the student appointing a healthcare agent, which I presume would be a parent. I don't like doing co-appointees there because what happens is you get sometimes differing opinions. Now, I know if the child was to appoint co-agents, chances are it's a mom and a dad, and you're not going to get a conflict. But however, there are times when doctors get caught in the middle of arguments between agents, which can make it difficult on them to proceed along with determining medical care. I know in New York, for example, the statutes came out 5 or 6 years ago, changing the forms to provide for only one agent because of that problem. So the child will come in and pick someone, mom or dad, to act as their sole agent, which is typical, and that's what I would recommend. The form, okay. So if my attending physician determines that I am unable to understand and appreciate the nature and consequences of healthcare decisions and unable to reach and communicate an informed decision regarding treatment, my healthcare agent is authorized to make any and all healthcare decisions for me, including 1, the decision to accept or refuse any treatment, service, or procedure used to diagnose or treat my physical or mental condition, and 2, the decision to provide, withhold, or withdraw life support systems. Now, for some reason in the form, it actually goes on to say, and it's just one of those moments where, I sit in my office and I flip my chair around, look out the window, and I'm like, okay, what? An agent is not allowed to recommend psychosurgery, okay, this is in the form, which is like a prefrontal lobotomy, or shock therapy, okay? Don't know why that's in there, but it's one of those moments where, I get the child here and the deer in the headlight, the eyes wide, and they're like, oh my God. But that's in there. It's in the statutory form. I guess we had One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. It was that Nurse Ratched. There must have been a Nurse Ratched problem here in Connecticut at some point along the way. I'll continue here. So I direct my healthcare agent to make decisions on my behalf in accordance with my wishes as stated in this document or otherwise known to my healthcare agent. All right. This is where doctors rely on a healthcare agent's opinion as to what to do based upon their interactions with the principal, the person that signs this, the patient. And at the age of your children, you probably haven't had a lot of discussions about, the different methods of medical treatment that I would want if I'm sick or anything like this. They're young. You just haven't been through it yet. So the form is, it's not child-centric. It's adult-centric, really. And these are the sorts of things that, suppose you can talk to your child about, as they get ready to go off. And moving into a next document here, we'll get to that in a second. This is where they actually have to start to think about some heavier things, okay? But finishing up with the healthcare agency form, the healthcare agent is authorized to receive protected information, which is basically a waiver of the HIPAA rules for medical information about the patient. All right, so there's a few things going on. They're appointing an agent, right? We're talking about the agent also being able to receive otherwise protected medical information. And I think, to your point, I mean, there are times, and I have used these forms already, where the child, gets sick, they're in the hospital, they drank too much, they're in a hospital or a doctor's office, and they will ask for these. Okay, what we'll do is we digitize these up for the student and the parent. We separate them out into separate attachments. Doctors will rely on and act on copies. They don't need to see the originals. So what we do recommend is taking the copies that we digitize, get them over to the nurse's office so they have it. Have your child keep it on their phone. Digitized copies work, okay? So there's our agency form. Moving along into the next document that's part of the healthcare is a living will. This is, yes?
Can I ask, on that digitization of the documents, if the child's incapacitated and the document's on their phone,
Right, that's not going to do any good. But if a child is not on their way into the hospital and the doctor says to them, by the way, do you have an agent appointed? They can just take it out and say, yeah, it's my dad or my mom. Here it is. But yeah, if they're incapacitated, obviously the phone's not going to help much. The phones nowadays do have, most iPhones, I think, have an emergency button you can press. Even though you're not the owner of the phone, you can still, I'm not sure exactly, I haven't done it myself, but I know you can do it. If you're like an EMS person or a doctor, you can press, I think, a couple buttons at the same time and it pops up with the emergency contact. That's what I would recommend that they do, for sure. So make sure, everyone should do that. So on the iPhones, you can now, anyone can press a couple of buttons if there's a car accident or something like this on somebody's phone and their emergency contact pops up. So have them do that, for sure, yeah.
I want to drill down a little bit because I actually had a parent that just went through this this past year.
Right.
And their child, of course, did not have a healthcare proxy.
Right.
So, practically speaking, your child ends up in the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
Where do these physicians turn? Do they contact the school? And this document is with, when you say the nurse's office, I assume you meant the nurse's office?
At the college. Well, most colleges have their own, medical staff, nurse's office, infirmary. But there are times when the ambulance shows up and has to take the child who just drank too much off to the local hospital for treatment, right? And that's where you would hope that a roommate or someone involved with, seeing the child being taken off in a hospital would call and get in touch with you. And I would suggest that you have that conversation with your children to have somebody there's RAs, right? Resident advisors are there. If an ambulance shows up at a dorm, an RA is going to know about it. Their job is to sit there and make sure that, things are running smoothly from that perspective. So the RA is going to know. But I would also recommend that your children have trusted contacts there who know who to reach out to in case there's an emergency.
One more, what I would add also is that there's all sorts of deans of resident life and all sorts of those people all over campus with these titles, and they deal with this stuff the same way Mr. Rothman is the great advisor. There's people at every university that are, administrators, and they still, it's the same model if you think about it. You may not have access with them as much as you have here, but there are people available, and I know that there was one incident where I did have that contact, and I was thankful for it too.
Yes.
I was going to say, I'm a sophomore in college, and I think in the portal of the school, like where you have to upload the vaccination and everything, I do think that I uploaded her these documents, so at least the university had it on file. And granted, if she went to the hospital, there would have to be, like you guys said, that in between person. But if the hospital had her name, then the university would have had the files there before I knew.
Now that you're saying that, I think I remember that. There's such a plethora of information that we're all going through on these college websites. You're like, oh yeah, I got to get
Right,
back.
but I think like in the health something, you can upload additional
Right.
documents, so at least it's there.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of the websites of the college, yes.
I was looking at the form online, I downloaded it on the Connecticut site. You have to have witnesses, and then there's a spot for a notary.
Right.
A notary. Is that all you need to do to make the document legal, or do I need to come to a lawyer?
No, you can do it on your own if you'd like, that's fine. You just need to have it executed with 2 witnesses and a notary on the agency form, okay? All right, question?
Matter, it's at different states.
Yeah.
So then we just fill it out for Connecticut, whatever
Yeah,
state they're going.
the documents that we do are Connecticut-centric. They're domiciled here in Connecticut. When you're in college, your domicile is where you're living with your parents, okay? So anything that we do here is Connecticut-centric. That's connected to the Connecticut statute. That goes for not only the healthcare set, but the power of attorney. Power of attorney for us, I also take the statutory powers that we have, and I manuscript in additional powers that we like to have in there that are not in the statute. So, yeah, half of the power, for example, is statutory. The other part is things that we manuscript in, mostly connected to if the child, God forbid, ever needs governmental assistance in receiving something, they really become disabled. Those sorts of things are not in the statutory set, okay? But the answer really would be if, we do the Connecticut-centric documents and they go to school in Nebraska or someplace, right? There's full faith and credit between the states on these documents. So it's not like someone in Nebraska is going to say, aha, you didn't do it in Nebraska, it's no good. That's not how it works. Okay? Anything else right now? All right. More grim stuff. Hate to do it, but this is part of the set. This is a living will. And this is a document that states that if you're in an irreversible vegetative coma, there's no hope of recovery, you're being kept alive by life support alone, you don't want to live that way, right? And you're not coming back. You're brain dead. And so the living will is a statement by the person that signs it. You're not appointing anybody in here. You've already appointed your agency in the prior form. What you're doing here is just expressing an intent that you don't want to live like a vegetable. Now, this is another one of those deer in the headlights moments when I get the students in. I ask that they read them before they come in to see me, talk it through with the parents. Half of them do, half don't. They're kids, they come in and it's like, oh my God, I haven't really thought about this. So if I had to put a percentage on it, I'd say half do it. Half aren't quite ready for that yet. They just haven't cycled through it. The other half will do it. But I think the overarching point to this sometimes for me is that it gets the children to start to think about making that transition from being under your care, being a minor, to an adult. And they start to have to think about these sorts of things now for the first time on their own and make decisions for themselves. It also gets them used to coming in to see a lawyer and a professional, which I think is a useful step for them. And I make it very clear to them that when they come in, I'm representing them. If they have questions, they want to talk to me about something in confidence, they can call me. I usually give my cell phone out if they need it, if they want it for any reason, connected to that. And then one of the reasons I offer it is because if they ever get into trouble, I'm kind of moving away from some of these legal documents, and they get into trouble. You hear the insurance companies of your autos, right, say the same thing. If you get into trouble, don't admit anything. That's a standard lawyer response, asked to talk to a lawyer, right? And so, sometimes things happen in the middle of the night. You can't reach somebody. I offer the cell phone. If the kids want it, it's fine. Call me. We have lawyers at my office here in New Canaan that do just about everything. I've run the Trust and Estates Department. We have a guy that does more criminal side of things, one personal injury, one business. So there's somebody that I can get them to in a quick emergency if needed. All right. So let me just continue with the living will here. So. Again, it's one of those documents that's kind of tough to digest for anyone, and especially young kids that haven't thought it through, but there it is. I mean, the few things that the statute mentions that a principal who signs this would not want performed on them to bring them back into the vegetative coma. One is CPR. You don't want them to perform CPR to bring you back into a vegetative state. Artificial respiration. Artificial means of providing nutrition and hydration, all right? Moving on, there's also an organ donor part of this that we use. I like to keep it consistent with the driver's license. If they're organ donors, we have a section here that says you're making an organ donation. If they change their mind and they did their driver's license not being an organ donor and they want to be an organ donor, the document that occurs last, which would be this, presumably, would control. Okay. The last part of the healthcare form, or the fourth part of this now, is in Connecticut, there's a role that someone can perform for someone called conservator. And I'll just read it from the statute. A conservator of the person is appointed to supervise the personal affairs of an individual who is found by the court to be unable, even with appropriate assistance, to meet essential requirements for personal needs. These may include, but are not limited to, the need for food, clothing, shelter, health care, and safety. All right, that's just a statutory role that can be performed by someone for somebody else. What I like to do and what I recommend to clients when I'm asked is have the appointments be consistent. If I have someone being an agent and somebody else being a conservator, we could run into conflicts as to what to do. Some of the roles overlap in Connecticut, and there's been litigation here in Connecticut about who's doing what for the principal. So if we had the same person named, a trusted person, the parent here in this case, it's usually a better idea to have one person named so there's no conflict, right? So those are the four components to the medical documents. We've got, again, the agency, we've got the living will, we have the conservatorship, and the organ donation. All right, moving on to more business-related things. Power of attorney, I have them sign it anyway. This covers more business-related things. Examples would be gives you the ability as the attorney, in fact, for your child to access and manage bank accounts, obtain financial records, sign other legal documents on your child's behalf. Again, there's statutory components to that. There's maybe a dozen or so statutory components built within the law. We manuscript in some additional ones, all right? More unlikely here would be a student signing a will. If they own their own assets, if they're beneficiaries of trusts, things like this, they're now 18, they can sign wills if it's appropriate, if it's needed. I'm not an over-planner. If they don't need it, we don't do it, right? But it's there. Okay, let me just get into briefly something called FERPA. It's the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, referred to as FERPA. I'm not an expert in FERPA. It's a sprawling law, really unconnected to like estate planning work, I would say, that I do. But having just gone through it with my daughter, and there is a component to the FERPA law that we do have the child sign off on, and we'll get to that in a sec. It's a law that's designed to protect students' records. And I'll just read a little bit. What I did was I just pulled Villanova's statement. There's a lot going on with FERPA. We could sit here for hours and talk about it, which I'm not going to do, of course. But I'll just read a little bit of some of the relevant parts. So it said, Villanova, in accordance with the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, FERPA, has adopted this student records policy to address the following issues with respect to educational records. right? So they're using their statements here and dovetailing it into the law, into this FERPA law. 1, disclosure of directory information. 2, confidentiality of personally identifiable information. 3, student rights to inspect, review, and seek amendment of their records. In general, education records are defined as records maintained in any form by the university that are directly related to the student. Now, connected to the disclosure of directory information, we're looking at things like things they can disclose, right? These can be published without the student's consent. Full name, student information, address, which includes local home or electronic mail, telephone number, photograph or video, date and place of birth, major field of study, grade level, enrollment status, honors and awards, dean's list, most recent previous educational attended, participation in recognized activities in athletics, weight and height of members of athletic teams, things like this. Now, a student can step in and say, I don't want you to release this information. They have to sign off on that, however. They have to identify what they don't want the college to release, then they'll sign off on it. Okay. Confidentiality of personally identifiable information. All personally identifiable information contained in student records other than directory information that we just looked at is considered confidential. That includes, not limited to, academic evaluations, general counseling, advising records, disciplinary records, financial reports, letters of recommendation, medical records, things like this. Okay, I recommend taking a look at the college's FERPA language because it's important, I think, to understand these sorts of things as we're sending them off. They can disclose information to, this is, again, the college has the right to disclose information to parties who provided or created the records, right, to officials of other educational institutions where the student seeks to enroll, the transfer students, for example, to the U.S. Attorney General under the U.S. Patriot Act in connection with certain investigations, to organizations conducting studies for or on behalf of educational agencies or organizations, okay, to parents of dependent students as defined in Section 151 of the IRC. This is where we have the student sign a confirmation that they are dependents for tax purposes under the federal tax code. And why? Why do I have them do that? Because this gives you as parents now the ability, confirming that they are tax dependents and you can receive educational records from the college. All right. Absent that, you're going to have a tough time. Believe it or not, we're paying the bills. Hard for me to believe that, but we'll have them sign that when they're in to see us.
You mentioned one phrase that struck a chord with me, something more related to the social emotional piece, if you will. But you mentioned something about activities sanctioned by the university, and I would be very cautious about the whole rushing situation, because there's a lot of schools where fraternities, some sororities, but mostly fraternities, have been kicked off campus. So now they're still existing, and they're existing underground, and so if your son or daughter is interested in rushing, one of these fraternal institutions, if you will, like, is it sanctioned by the university? Very, very important factor, because if it's not, why? And there's also there's a lot of resources for parents, kind of sneaky. There's like College Confidential, where they are rushing a fraternity, for example. And what's that fraternity's reputation on campus? What do the students say? And it's always interesting to see what the students how they react to their fellow classmates, and you might get information like there's a lot of drugs at the parties, there's a lot of just like red flags. So there's ways to find out information, kind of in a backhanded way, but that underground fraternity to me was kind of a red flag. Why is it underground? What's wrong with above ground like the rest of us type thing? But
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of fraternities that get suspended. Thrown off for periods of time. A lot of it's related to hazing. Mm-hmm. There is hazing at a lot of these, Greek outfits. You just be careful with that, I suppose. I know the colleges have tried to crack down on it over the last, I would say, am I right with that? Over the last 10, 20 years. But yeah, it's an issue. The other thing that I try to tell my kids is, since we're in this social media world where everyone's taking pictures of everyone at every given moment, be careful. Don't dress up, Halloween like something stupid that's going to come back and haunt you, because it's going to get out there and, it could affect you. It could affect your ability to get work at a job, whatever. This stuff is out there. Hard to get down, Somebody screenshots, I think Snapchat, the images disappear after a few minutes from what I understand or something, but they can be screenshotted, right? So just be really careful with that sort of thing. Don't put yourself in some compromising position that's going to hurt you later on. Try to be smart, right? And Halloween seems to be one of those that really burns people, We see it not only with the kids, but with, like Trudeau, whoever it is out there, dressing up stupidly for Halloween, and it comes back and burns them. So just be careful. Give them that talk about being mindful of not letting, photographs be taken of them in compromising or stupid or embarrassing positions, because it could hurt them. Let's see. Let me just keep going through this. I think I'm just about at the end. Timing. Our kids are off soon. We're at the end of April here. The orientation for a lot of our children, for the freshmen, is probably going to start in mid-August. I would call your lawyer if you want us to do it. Be happy to help. We have our system in place for the kids. We've done so many of them now that it's pretty seamless. But call your lawyer, get it done. Time's running out. We're getting there. You're going to be busy for the next few months. Vacations and getting them ready and all of this. So try to get it done before they leave, so you have it in place. If they turn 18, and I get plenty of these too, after they left, they usually come back and see me during a vacation, right? So they'll come back for Thanksgiving or something. The kids will come back in and see me. We get it done. All right. What I can do, I can give you just my phone number if you'd like. I think this is recorded, right? So I'll just put my phone number down. I didn't bring a PowerPoint presentation or anything today. My direct line here in the New Canaan office, if you'd like to talk to me about this, is 203-403-7734. Again, it's 203-403-7734. We have an office, we have a main office, 46 Main. Our office, the Trust and Estates practice, is out of 51 Locust. We just expanded into that area there. So we're 51 Locust, the corner of Cherry and Locust. I think that should bring me to the end of this. Just connected really quickly to what you were talking about, and it does relate to the HIPAA. And the medical part of this. I was just reading in the New York Times, I think it was on Sunday, there were some things I just screenshotted. I didn't even intend to really talk about this, but I get the question, okay, I'm seeing a therapist in college, it's tough transition. If I sign this, can my mother call my therapist and talk about what it is we're talking about? And no, if the child says no, that's it. Whoever it is that they're talking to cannot just say, oh yeah, mom's calling and she wants to know, if you like her or whatever. No, these documents can be revoked in part or in whole at any time, and I always tell the students that. If there any time they get married, you come back, you see me, you want somebody else to do this for you, come back and see me, we revoke it, and it's redone, okay? The mental health part of this really is becoming an issue. I'm looking at the New York Times and I screenshotted this, and I'll just read it, just because I hate to end on such a downer, but American adolescence is undergoing a drastic change. 3 decades ago, the gravest public health threats to teenagers in the United States came from binge drinking, drunken driving, teenage pregnancy, and smoking. These have since fallen sharply, replaced by a new public health concern, soaring rates of mental disorders. Okay. In 2019, 13% of adolescents reported having a major depressive episode, a 60% increase from 2007. Emergency room visits by children and adolescents in that period also rose sharply for anxiety, mood disorders, and self-harm. And for ages 10 to 24, the suicide rates are up, 60%. So I think, having these documents in place and heeding, what Greg was talking about with respect to the mental health is important nowadays. The increases of these sorts of issues are fairly alarming. And I've got 2 kids that are, stressed out a lot of the times. There's a lot of pressure on these kids today. And, you do what you can as parents to try to help, but just be mindful, I think, as they go off, offer whatever help they need. And like you say, they still need help. Greg had mentioned that. They still need help. They still need our help. And that's what the part of what we do is. We're transitioning them from being here with us as babies into adults. But they still need our help. And I think I'm just going to end with that. Any questions about any of this? Yes?
Do you know approximately how much it would cost to get these done?
Yeah, what we do, the firm, what we do is we just, we reduce things for students. Typically, to do like a power of attorney for me and we call them ancillary documents, would run about $750. I reduce it down to $450 for the students, which is covering costs and such. So $450 just as a flat rate. We'll answer questions and we'll hold the documents there. The other thing that we do, and it's up to you, 95% of our clients have us hold the original documents in our safe. This way they're not lost or anything like this. Like I said, the medical professionals will act on copies. The power of attorney, however, if you did want to use the power, you need the original for that. So they would include that too. We'll hold the documents, get them done for you, answer any questions for the parents or the students. And I try to always, again, I reemphasize that the parents usually come in. You don't have to come in if you don't want to. The students are my client, really. But, a lot of times they want to bring their parents in to have me field questions or to, hash things through a little bit. So that's how we do it on the fee front.
And you have the notary and do it.
Everything's done, yeah. That includes us with my witnesses and my notary and everything else. We scan everything, get them to you, and package it up. We're pretty efficient about it. If you get the information that we need, typically we'll have an assistant who will send out just a very quick 6-line item of information that I need in order to get it done. We generate the docs, send out drafts for you to take a look at, and I do recommend that you look at them with your child before you come in. Because at least half the time they come in, they haven't looked at them, and we're sitting there talking about, electroshock therapy and all this sort of stuff. We can get it done pretty efficiently. But that being said, I still wouldn't wait too long because August is going to be here and they're off. Okay? Yes.
So for a student that will turn 18 while they're at school,
Right.
what happens during that window?
You're still the guardian of your child. They're minors. And you still have control to talk to doctors. You still have the ability to communicate with.
But I'm saying if they turn 18 while they're at college.
While they're at college, yeah, I get that too. I mean, I think it depends on how close they are to coming home. If they're going to be home in 4 days, let's just wait it out, right? The other way, and I have done this, is a student in Alabama or something like that. They're not going to be home for 3 months. I'll get the docs down to them. We'll try to walk them through how to sign it. They'll go to a bank or something like this, or one of the administrators at the college to help us execute them. Okay, so it can be done. But again, I mean, the breaks, as I've noticed, there's breaks all over the place. Like my daughter called me yesterday and asked me to go pick her up like this weekend. I thought it was a break, but she's done, time it for like if there's a break coming up, come in and see me. I'd rather do it. Be honest with you, just to make sure it's done right. So I would just, play it by ear. If it's 3 months and they're not going to be here and you want to get it done, we'll just email it down. They can print it and sign it down there or wherever they are. Anything else? Yes.
Why can't you just do it before they're 18 and get it done?
Because they're minors, they can't sign the documents until they're 18. Okay. Was that it?
One in the back.
One in the back.
I'm just curious, like from a legal perspective, what's our parents' obligation for kids' tuition, living costs?
Pardon me, I can't see you here.
I'm sorry. From the legal perspective, what's parents' obligation for kids' college tuition, living costs, that kind of
I
process?
see.
If I sign a contract with my kids,
Right.
ready to execute with the Whitneys, okay, and then I say you have to keep, GPA 3.0 0 or whatever, otherwise I'm gonna pay 50% of it. Is that legal or? I mean, practically, it's like driving.
That's a great idea.
I know I'm evil, but.
Yeah, look, I love the concept. I'm all, I love it. I think that any such contract between you and your child, well, first of all, there are all sorts of issues that come before that I think would need to be addressed, as to, the type of relationship that you're having. Your kids are just saying, in terms of you actually paying for school and entering into some agreement, okay, you're going to either make it a 3-5 or I'm not paying sort of thing, you know what I mean? That's really not a contract. It's more just I'll call it a social arrangement you have with your child where you're, there's a promise there that you're going to do something for them if they work really hard. You can't really put that into a legal contract, I wouldn't say, I don't know how enforceable it would be really. We're moving sort of away from like these college docs that we're talking about right now with something like that. That being said, yeah, the college is expensive and we're all hoping our kids get there and work hard, and communicating with them in different ways about succeeding, quote unquote, without taking it into a contract format, I think probably is the way to go. But that's something that's internal for you and your family to talk through. Yes?
I think it's important to point out that I think after they are 18, you are not really obligated to support them.
This is true. This is true. And the other thing, you run into, and this is something I've struggled with too, we're paying for everything, right? Look at the phones. Do I still track? Just a show of hands, how many people track their kids on their phones? Okay. So most. Okay, so most. So, yeah, the question I always have, I have daughters, so maybe it's a little bit different for guys. I don't know if it is or not, but, I'd still like to know where they are, and they kind of consented to that at this point. They understand I'm paying the bills. The alternative is, kids, you go pay the bills and then take me off, you can do it that way. And it seems to work. I like knowing where they are right now. Especially, there are the stories out there that, the hypermedia stories about some kid getting kidnapped or whatever. You'd like to know where they are and what's going on. So it's an interesting question. Just another show of hands. How many plan on continuing to track in college? Have you thought that? Okay, good. So I don't feel so bad. Okay, so that's interesting. That's an interesting little, a survey there. So, yeah, we're paying the bills. That's the way I'm looking at it right now. But to each his own, and some children might give blowback on that. I've got nieces are in college too, and I know all of my siblings are also tracking still.
I stopped. I raised my hand, but I just realized my oldest is 25. I don't do him anymore. But
okay.
My youngest is about 10, so I think when he's ready to go, we'll have like a chip inserted or something.
Yeah, right. All right. I think that takes me to the end then, so thanks for having me. And that's it, I guess, right? We're all done, Greg?
I think so.
All right. Thank you.
Good job.
You too.